He's a postgraduate researcher from Nottingham Trent University, and he has a number of skills to his finite element analysis and many more. So we welcome you, Mr. Karthike.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Karthike, and I'm pursuing my PhD at Nottingham Trent University. Basically, I did my bachelor's of mechanical engineering in India itself, and after that, I have like 1 year industrial experience of working in 3D printing. And before that, I have done like some internships in companies like Stratasys, where I basically got this interest, and now my PhD is also in the same field. So I would not want to make the presentation very boring because just be hearing it. So I might ask some simple questions because my presentation is really very simple because it's about the basics of 3D printing and all the things we are going to understand, uh, different 3D printing technologies. So I'll just start sharing my screen. Just a second. Just a second. Yeah. So is my screen visible now?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so basically we'll be discussing the basics of 3D printing, which will actually be very basic information. And just for you all to understand what exactly 3D printing is and what all are the different technologies that are emerging in different industries. So I won't waste any more time and I'll just start with it. So basically, over here I show you what all I will be covering. So basically, first we'll be understanding what 3D printing is in very layman terms, and then instead of going to the basics directly, I have a slide where I show the expectations that you can have from 3D printing. So what usually happens is when someone talks about 3D printing, they're like, we can make anything in 3D now. But it's not like that. You cannot make everything that you think of. There are limitations to it. And maybe even if the answer is yes to making everything, the technology varies. And there are again limitations and thresholds to every thing, and even the design parameters in that sense. And after that, we'll be covering the basics of 3 different technologies. And I would hope that I'm able to explain it well, and at least after this presentation you can very well explain it to the next person if you talk to someone about these technologies. And then I have some very small slides, so if you are a hobbyist you can purchase those printers if you want. Those are the really cheap ones. And I'm a hobbyist, like I started as a hobbyist myself as well, so I have some printers as well from those from that list. Then I'll show you some industrial solutions, some low cost for the low cost industry, and the really big players in the industry which are using the 3D printing and which are manufacturing 3D printers basically. Then before ending, I have like a helpful guide for you all, because there are design parameters that you need to take care of. So it's not just that you need to understand 3D printing and how it works, but something before 3D printing, which is basically designing a part that you actually want to print, and what all you need to keep in mind when you are printing it and when you are designing it basically. So over here I'll have a screenshot of that, so I'll be discussing that. But maybe in the chat, I don't know if we can, but I'll share a PDF of it if you people want. And yes, in the end we'll have a question answer round. So I'll just start. So before it's a very basic video, simple animation. But before that, can anyone just unmute and say what their thoughts are about 3D printing and what they think it is? In very simple terms, anything that you know and you want to tell everyone about.
Can we have any of the participants?
Okay, for the starters, maybe
Hello.
yeah, yeah.
I
Please go on.
think
Yes.
it should be the 3D printing. It should be
We are simulating a living thing with some material in the same way, in the 3D way.
Yes. So 3D, let's understand what 2D printing is. And I hope you all have printed a sheet of A4 paper from a printer, from a HP printer, or one of your sheets or one of your pages of a document that you were creating, or maybe you wanted to sign it. So that is why you printed it, right? So there's something in your PC, maybe a Word document, which you have typed on. And when you want it in the physical world, you actually have to use a machine, which is called printer, to get a page out with all the text. So that is bringing something from the virtual environment, that is your computer, to the real environment. So that is what a 3D printer does. So you have a 3D model instead of a document now, because you are going to print in 3D. So you need to have a 3D model now. And then you feed, after setting some parameters, you feed the information to a printer. And as an output of the printer, just like a 2D printer, it will give you an object in the real world. So this time it will be in 3D. You will actually be able to hold it. It will have some dimensions in Z as well. So basically it will be a 3D, right? I'll just play this very small video. Can you hear the audio of this video? Just tell me, please.
No.
Oh, audio is not.
You can't. Yeah.
Quite similar to a normal
Yes, we can
printer,
now.
but then a little different. First, you don't put in an ink cartridge, but instead connect a spool of special printing material like plastic, rubber, or even metal. And you don't print boring text documents, but real-life models of what you've just made on your computer screen. Simply awesome.
Yeah. So it's just repeating what I said, but in a something in a visual manner so that you can see actually. But we'll be going much more in depth. So just if someone asks you in a one liner what is a 3D printing, you could just say that just like a 2D printer, when you have a text document, you print it out and get it in a real world. You can have a 3D CAD model, and then you can feed it to a 3D printer, and then you can actually hold it as an, like, the output of the printer will be that an object that you can actually hold it. Okay, so let's move on. So now let's set the expectations right. So there are things which you need to control, and there are thoughts that so basically it all starts with imagination. When you start making a model from scratch by yourselves, you will need to understand all are the design parameters, and you will need to know what all are the limitations. But I think keeping the limitations on the top of the list is really important, so that you don't end up making something which is not printable, and then you will have to go back and make iterations. But that is anyways one feature of 3D printing, that it allows very quick iterations. So let's jump into this. So what can be the limitations? Limitations can be the size. So every printer that, maybe you own a printer, and that will have a maximum build volume. So basically that will have a volume specified, or the size specified for a model that you can actually make. So above that, it's not possible to print it in a single go, just like your 2D printer. So there are some printers which can do A4 sheets. There are some printers which can do A4 and A3 all, but there are limitations, right? So size wise there can be limitations, then there can be limitations material wise. Basically in the sense that, if you, in the last presentation you were talking about bioprinting, right? So those printers can do bio inks, but there are printers which cannot do bio inks, just as simple as that. But there are printers which can do industrial grade steels, metals, rubbers, plastics. So there can be limitations. So there can be limitations in limitation on material. Basically, if you that can do it in one go, functional part means that if you want to print two things that are in real world movable, but when you print them, they are printed together. So you need not actually assemble it after printing. So if I have to give give you an example. Maybe if you want to print a chain which will actually move in the real world, but you know that if you have to make a chain like that, you cannot make it in 3D later. Or if you have now two rings in your hand, you cannot assemble in place just interconnected, right? So there are printers which can do that, there are printers which cannot. Then there are features that you need to understand, and basically feature here talks about the design limitations. So there is a limitation to the minimum dimensions of every feature. So for example, talking about holes, if your CAD model or if your 3D model has some holes in it, you need to know the limitations of your printer, as in what is the smallest dimension of the hole that you can print with, maybe what is the angle of maybe inclination that you can print with your printer, and there are lots of other design parameters. Then the intricacy. So there can be very small features or very complicated features in your design, but some printers will be able to do it, some won't be, because there are industrial printers that are capable of doing it, and that is one reason, that is why they are expensive as well. So the other limitation is time and cost. So do you even have that much time? Maybe you're running short on the deadline to submit a project of yours, but a print will take a specific time to get printed. So that can be a limitation in your case. And the cost, maybe you don't have that much budget to spend on a print, but you can't but you can't print it in that manner. But what all you can do, what all you can change in your design, that we will be discussing, so that you can maybe cut down the costs a bit. And there are environmental concerns, because there are some materials, not just bio inks, but some industrial grade materials which can be really harmful to the environment if they are printed, as in because some of them release some fumes. So I'm not saying that you will be printing with it, but there are some printers in the industry that need to be using those materials because of the mechanical properties that are required. For example, ABS is one of them. So ABS is a very well-known plastic which is used in mold injection, and a lot of things is made in ABS. So if you see your keyboard in front of your desktop, it is a mold injected part, most probably in polycarbonate or ABS. So these materials, when they are heated, they give out fumes, and that is where this environmental concern comes into play. And then a surface finish. So every object that we have maybe has a rough finish or has a smooth finish, right? So it can be a shiny, glossy finish, and different types of finishes can be achieved with 3D printing as well. Okay, so I hope that this slide made sense. Uh, so just moving on. Okay, so what are the basics? So basically a 3D printing process, how you can imagine is again going to a 2D printing example, but this time not because of printing, but imagining it like this. So when you purchase a box of A4 sheet, if you ever have, or if you ever have changed the sheets in your 2D printer, you have a packet of A4 sheets, right? And that packet is actually a cuboid. So cuboid is a 3D object in real world, but when you open the packet, let's just imagine that the sheet you're holding, the A4 sheet that you have from the packet, has negligible thickness. So if you think of that one sheet as a 2D object, and when you collect all 2D objects, or maybe a lot of sheets one over the other, you get a 3D object. So that is how the technology works. So it prints one layer, then it prints another layer over it, and it keeps doing that until until it can make a 3D object. So if you see both of these videos, you can see that it is making layer by, so basically it is a time lapse that is happening in both the videos. And you can, so printing is not that fast, it is a time lapse, I'm speaking again. So that is how basically it works. So it prints in layers, right? And all the technologies, all the 3D printing technologies, there may be some exceptions, but most of them work by this process, which is called layer by layer additive process. So basically additive means adding, and layer by layer is a like well-defined word, so you can understand that. And 3D printing has a lot of processes. So it's not just that you can click Control P, just like 2D printing, and it will start printing. No, there's a lot of process that you need to do before starting that, and it's not very difficult once you learn it. And there are a lot of technologies that can use different type of uh, materials for printing, and work on different types of processes again to print it. So in the end, like if you dig down, it comes down to layer by layer printing. But how is that layer getting formed is a different process in a different in every different technology. So I hope this also made it somewhat clear. Okay, so in the previous slide, I just talked about that there can be a lot of technologies that can do 3D printing, and there are in the in the world that different industries and companies are working upon. Different companies are making different types of printers which work upon different technologies. So let's just quickly see all the technologies at once that are here. Apart from, I think bioprinting is not there, but all the industrial grade 3D printing technologies that are there in a single slide. So it can be a little daunting to see all of them because the slide might be very full because there are a lot of technologies there. So this is how, if I have to show you all the different types of technologies that are here or are there in the world to make a 3D object. So they are again listed as into like different branches, and there are a lot of companies. If you see the last portion of this flow chart, you will see a lot of big industrial players who are making the printers, and there are some technologies which are more popular than the other ones. So if you have to just shorten them down, like which are more popular, because looking at it does not make very sense at first. But if you just look at the number of companies at the bottom, if you see over here that, if you can see my cursor, I don't know. If you see the fourth column where it says Stratasys, Ultimaker, so there are a lot of companies uh, under that technology of 3D printing, which is called FDM. So with a lot of players into this technology, we can understand that this is the most popular one, and that is how you can shorten them down. And the ones that have single industrial players, we can think of them as new technologies or maybe patented technologies, so that other companies cannot work on them till their patent is in place. And from all this, we need not learn all the technologies right now, because it's hard to take all that information into yourself. And I'm very frankly speaking, I also don't know all the technologies. So it's good enough if you just know some basics, and then you can dig down according to what research project you are doing. And once you know the basics, I think it should not be very difficult to grab onto some different technology. So we will be covering a good range of technology. So basically, we should learn the most popular one, which is FDM, and then we should be learning something which uses a liquid as a raw material. So we will be learning about SLA, and then we'll be learning learning about a technology which uses a powder as a raw material. So we will be covering a good range, because we'll have a technology which uses a solid wire, and then a technology which uses raw material as a resin or a liquid, and a powder based technology. So let's just move on. Do you have any questions? You can like ask in between as well, because if you have, it's fine. Okay, assuming that no one has.
No questions yet. Yeah, we can
Thank you.
move forward.
Moving on. Okay, so before jumping into the three technologies that I said that we'll be learning today, let's just understand the process. And the process is basically like this. So these are the images just to make it easier to understand. So first you make a CAD model, which you can think of as a document that you're making in MS Word, but this time you won't be using MS Office for this, but you will be using a 3D designing software, maybe of something like Fusion 360 or SolidWorks, or there are a lot of others like Rhino, Grasshopper, Blender you can use, and the list goes on. Basically, you need a CAD model, a 3D CAD model, and then you need to export that like every software has a capability of saving that file in different extensions. So just like I keep relating it to 2D things like a document so that it's easier for you to understand. So just like you can save your document file like a PDF or a document like doc or a .pdf, every software, every CAD software also has the capability to save the 3D file in different formats. So basically what format you need for 3D printing is .stl. So all the 3D softwares will have this capability of saving it into STL, and then you use this STL file to put it in a slicing software, which we will be discussing in a little more depth, because that is the important part where you do the settings. So basically the slicing software is like the dialog box that appears to your screen once you press Control P for printing a document. So you just set how many copies you want. Do you want it to fit to the scale, or do you want 2 pages? Do you want to collate when you're printing? So just like that, you will be doing some settings over here for your 3D print. You can also set number of prints that you want, what size you want, similar things, and some more things. And as an output from that slicing software, you will have thin slices. So these thin slices, you can again go back and imagine like the A4 sheets we were talking about in the whole bundle of A4 sheets, right? So these will be the thin layers. You won't be yeah, you will be able to see the layers in the slicing software itself, but once it is exported, you won't be able to see that like visually, but your printer will be able to understand that toolpath format. So this toolpath or the layers, the sliced layers are fed into the 3D printer. How that also I'll be discussing in a very brief manner, because that's just saving a file that is exported from slicing software in a USB stick or via USB cable. You just feed it to the printer, and then you go to your printer, you start the print. But there are some things that you need to do, things like feeding the raw material, and things like heating the bed and the nozzle. Just like bioprinter, the person was talking about heated bed, heated extruders, right? So those things you will be able to control, and you need to. And some printers are smart enough that if you just tell them what material you are using, they can prepare everything for you. And in the end, after giving printer some time for it to work, you will get a 3D object as an output. So that is the process, and it remains same in all the technologies. What changes is that the slicing software you are using, and the 3D printing process or the 3D printer you are using. So these two steps are like interrelated to each other, because the slicing software will be for a 3D printer that you are using, and it will be different for all the technologies. And even for the same technologies, if you purchase two different printers from two different companies, the slicing software can be different. But there's no need to worry, as because the settings remain the same. So it's just like if you print a page from a HP printer, or if you print a page from some other company's printer, there can be some different settings of choosing maybe different types of color schemes and all those things. But basically, more or less, things remain the same, right? So that is where and how it happens. Okay, so let's jump into the first technology. And before explaining you, I would give you 15 seconds. And so it's like a task for you. And I have this slide in front of you. You can just read through it. You can see this illustration, which is a very simple illustration to understand. And I would want someone to, if it's fine, someone to unmute and explain to everyone what they can understand from this. And after that, obviously, I'll be uh, doing my part as well. Anyone, if you feel comfortable.
So the computer has a 3D model of the thing to be printed, and we
Yes.
have a material spool of some sort of plastic, which
Yes.
comes in like a thread,
Yes.
and it goes through the printer's head, that is moving around and printing it layer by layer. So first it prints the bottommost layer in 2 dimensions, then it prints
Yeah.
the next layer, then it prints the next layer. So all the 2D prints together become a 3D print.
Perfect. So I think after this, I need not even explain all this because it is very simple to understand, as I expect, as I think that it should be, because you all are into very difficult streams and you're working so hard in your work. So I think this should be very easy to understand, but still I'll go on with it. So as uh, previously said, perfectly said, yes, we have a materials pool. It can be a plastic, it can be any material, it can be a composite even, it can be a carbon fiber, it can be glass fiber, or anything that can be drawn into a wire. There are some printers that can now print directly steel as well, so you can have a steel wire as well. So it all depends on the printer's capability. So you will have a spool of wire because there need to be some place where you are storing and getting your raw material from. So that is where the spool comes into picture. You will have this spool, and over here the missing part in this diagram is the printer itself, but the end part, which is the more important part of the printer, is the extrusion head, where actually the filament is melted because this is a heated chamber, and this has a melting point. So this extrusion head need to reach that temperature, and then it becomes semi-solid. So as you see in this illustration, it's not this loose when it's printing, it's actually very near to the layer it is printing. So in this animation you can see it better. So the extrusion head moves something like this, and there are some printers which can do curves now in 3D, but more or less it will be one 2D layer, and then it keeps putting layers below the, like, above the previous layer. So either the head keeps moving up or the bed keeps moving down. So it can be both ways. Basically you need to do a change in Z. So I hope that this is easy enough for you, all of us to understand, because this is how I learned as well, just by watching some videos. I have a very good video for you if it will, it might make you more interested in the technology.
Or a high temperature Ultem, we can actually print it directly as opposed to casting a part or having injected molded parts done.
You're getting close to the same quality and in mechanical properties and aesthetics as you would an injection molded part, but you're getting it in an additive process.
Our software takes a 3D data file and it slices it into layers. Then that creates a tool path that's sent to the machine.
The raw material is produced into filament like fishing line type form. That filament is wrapped around a spool. So that's your cartridge of raw material that's going to be used to build part. That material then gets fed up through the machine all the way to the head, where it's liquefied and extruded in fine layers. The support material is extruded at the same time. That can smooth
anywhere from small prototypes for mock-ups on test fitting parts to really large
We've gone from that. We're just doing real easy concept models, it's the actual part coming from the FDM technology.
And so with it, we can do things that I have yet to even think of, but that younger generation, they're going to take this FDM process and turn it into something that's going to blow me away someday.
Yeah. So that was like a short video from a company called Stratasys, which is a big name in 3D printing now. Now let's discuss some of the control parameters that you need to know when you are making a slicing file for the printer to understand after your CAD model. So it is what step it is. So it is this step in the slicing software part where you need to know these parameters. Okay, so these are not the limited list. This is not the limited list of parameters. Actually, there are around 1,000 and 1,500 parameters, different parameters that you can change. But more of them are like very complex things and very detailed stuff, and which basically changes it in a very little manner, but yes, improves your quality of print. But if you know for the starters these basic ones, you are good to go. So there is something called print speed, which is basically the speed of the printer or the speed of the extrusion head that it will be moving during your print. So what happens is, if you print anything slower, if you allow the printer to print slowly, it will be able to produce better prints. But yes, there is a lower limit to that as well, that if you go slower than that, then you might spoil your model again, your CAD model again, or your 3D part. So slower is better in that sense. So these are just like simple thumb rules I would want you to know. And then there is printing temperature. So it is obviously material dependent, because every material will melt at a or get like get converted into a semi solid at a different temperature. So for example, there is a material called PLA, and it becomes very liquid, in a very liquid form at 180 degrees Celsius to around 210 degrees Celsius. It is a good temperature range for that material. So every material, if you purchase from a market, it will have a sticker on it. So there will be a sticker on the spool which will tell you the material range, sorry, the temperature range for that material. So then again, in that range, what temperature do you choose? It again depends. Sometimes what happens is, if you get some bad effects in your or some defects in your print, something which is called stringing, I'll be just showing you what it is. To like make it better, you can do the same print but at a lower temperature. So if you're printing at lower temperature, you will get less stringing. So just to see an example of that, if you can see this image which has two white bars, you can see some thread, very thin thread like structures. So this was not the intention of whoever was printing it, to print it with hair like structures like this, but this is like a defect of a 3D print. So what we can assume is that the temperature must have been a little higher than what was needed. So because of that, there was some plastic that was molten, and it was still coming out in places where it was needed. So to help it make better, he can print the same print at a lower temperature. And to give an example of that, like, does it actually work? If you see the model above it, which has two blue bars, on the left bars, you can see the temperature in degrees Celsius. So it is for PLA again. So if the person is printing at 240, he will get these many threads. If at 230, this many, and 220. And if you keep going up to 180, which is the lower limit, you actually have a better model without any stringing. So for and that keeps changing for every printer as well, and the work environment as well. So if you're printing in a hot room where it is hot outside and it's very high temperature, like high room temperature, then you might want to print it at a lower temperature, because everything in the end affects the melting of the material that is happening, right? So lower temperatures will give you no stringing effect. Then there is something called infill percentage. So more infill you will have, the stronger your parts will be. So what infill means is, basically, if you break this word into two parts, so in and fill. So if basically it's the filling of your part from inside. So coming to this image over here, which has three squares with a cross hatch pattern. So basically the outside of it is, so it's like a cross sectional view of a cube, you can think of it like that. And in the top you will just see a square, right? So if you just see inside, if you have a 12% infill, it will look something like this from inside. So it's like, so all the thin things are plastic, but these are like the plastic is this much far apart, or it is just covering the 12% of the volume. So this is 30% infill, this is 50% infill. So more infill you have, the stronger your part will be, but more material it will require and more time it will take to print. So coming down to the cost, if more material is used, for more time your printer runs, you'll be paying more for electricity, you will be paying more for the material that is getting used. So the cost increases if you increase the infill percentage, but yes, you get stronger parts. So you have to get a balance between how strong you want the part to be and what cost you can spend for printing that part. Okay, moving on. There is something called layer height, and which I think I should have put at the top of this, because this is the most important thing, because this defines the surface finish of your model. And I think we expect a very good finish from everything that we print, or at least a flawless finish, if not the best one. Lesser the value of the layer height. So what basically is layer height? Let's understand that. So the slices here, the slices that you saw in the video that I played, it will be the thickness of that slice. So one slice will be of the thickness of the layer height that we set here. So if we set like 0.2 mm, so one layer will be of 0.2 mm. If you just peel it out from a printer and just a single layer, you will be able to use a vernier caliper to measure it, and it should be 0.2 if your printer is running optimally. So lesser the value of the layer height, a better surface finish you will get. So if you come to see this this image, if you see the same model printed in different layer heights, you can see some layers in 0.2 mm model, but in 0.1 there are really less. So if you just zoom in, then you will be able to see some layers. And in 0.06, the layers are so thin that you cannot see them by naked eyes. At least if you put them under a microscope, yes, you will be able to see the layers in this as well. But this will take more time, this will take lesser time, because the printer will have to do more number of layers, because it, in the end, it has to reach the same height, it has to make the model with the same dimensions, right? So more layers in this, but lesser layers in 0.2, so it can make it in 9 minutes, and this one will take 30 minutes. So there's again a parallel that you need to draw. There's a balance that you need to find in your mind with the expectations from the model that you are having, that what surface finish you want it to be. Then cooling is a very important thing again, because since the material is coming out in a liquid form, you want it to be completely solid before the next layer is put on onto it. Unless what will happen if it's not solid fully is that it will start flowing apart, right? In the worst case scenario, it will flow, but in the not so worst scenario, it will just squish the previous layer and the dimensions won't be that good, right? So you want cooling, and there are mostly fans in printer in front of the nozzles. Like in the hobby printers, at least they are there. In more industrial grade printers, the like environment of the whole chamber where it is getting printed is controlled. So you will have something to support the cooling in the printer itself. Then supports is one thing that you might need in your model. This, if you see the image with two dogs, where do you think you will need supports? Anyone, if quickly want to share their thoughts about it, where would you need supports in a 3D print? For example, you have this image in front, if you just want to see and tell.
To make a curved thing?
Yeah, so if you have a curve or something like a dome which has nothing under it, so what have we learned till now is that it prints in layers. 3D printer prints in layers, but it needs something under it to print over it, right? But there can be models, for example this dog, where it has nothing under its belly to print upon, right? So if you want to make a standing dog like this, it will have nothing under the belly. So that is where you need some supports. So these supports will be removable. Like when the print completes, you can actually break them off and you will have a perfect dog without these supports. But to print them, you will need these supports. So basically it helps print the overhangs. Okay. And then there is something called build plate adhesion. So this means that you want your model to be adhere to the print bed, basically to keep sticking to the bed for the whole time when it is getting printed. So you don't want the bottom layer to come off and the printer will just make a mess of all the material that is getting extruded if there's nothing under it to print. So you want the bottom layer to actually stick very well to your print bed till the time it's printing. For that, you have different types of sticking maybe different types of names given to different types of adhesives. So basically you can generate a raft, which is like extra layers which you print on the bed to make the surface very flat, or there's something called a brim. So basically whatever you see blue in this image is build plate adhesion that the software has generated. So this in the rightmost one, it's called a raft, where if I zoom in, I don't know if you can see, but there's like basically this is 3D, so it has 1 2 3 some 3 layers under the model. So it will make it stick to plastic very well. So what will happen is that the bottommost layer of the raft needs to stick to the bed, and then for your model it will keep sticking to the raft because it's plastic under it. And then in this one it's called a brim. So basically it's like some extra layers just at the edge of the model, so it will keep it hold, like it will increase the surface area of your model that is touching the bed, and in turn it will affect the adhesion. And then over here it's a simple outline which is like a skirt, so that it prevents if you are printing another model around it, and if it comes off your bed, it will prevent at least this model to be perfectly printed. It will allow, sorry. And there's a post processing that you can do from your model. So either you can use your model like this, if that's fine. If it's just a prototype, then you can use it like this. If it's a final part, you can do some post processing like finishing things, which is basically like you can use a sandpaper to blend it down, and then you can use painting and fillers to make the surface look shiny and very smooth in this for FDM process. And you will have to do support removal, obviously, if you use supports in your print. So I hope that I know that this was too much anyways to understand, but if you just understood what print speed is and print temperature is, no one wants you to remember all of it because these headings will be there in the software. But if you once see this, you should be able to understand what it actually does and what it is actually for. So moving on to the next technology. I'll take give you more of tasks to understand and explain it to everyone.
Excuse me, I have
yes.
one doubt.
Yes.
Should the 3D printer be placed in an AC room?
Okay, so it's actually a very good question. It's just like if you go to a cyber cafe where there are a lot of computers, you would need air conditioner so that you are able to survive in that cyber cafe in a good manner. Otherwise, what will happen? The computers will be able to work, and in the end it might affect their performance as well. But for initials, it will be fine for the computers to be there, but it will be difficult for you to sit in that room. Similarly, if you have lot of 3D printers in your room, then yes, air conditioning is required for you for the first thing. If you have some fumes coming out of the printer, it will be good that the air can be circulated for you to exist in that place, because it won't harm the printer that much as much as it will harm you. But if you have just one printer, it is fine to just have that printer and not have a AC in that room. It's fine. If you are asking for a hobbyist perspective, it's absolutely fine, because I use 2 printers in my room and in my room in my place in India, and I have no ACs over there. So it is perfectly fine for the printer and you as well if you just have 1 or 2 printers. But if you increase the number of fumes, or the number or the amount of fumes, or the amount of heat coming out, might make the conditions uncomfortable for you. It won't affect the printer that much. Yeah. Did I answer it fine? I hope. So moving on. Okay, so the next technology is called stereolithography. So in the previous one, the raw material was a solid wire, right? It was a plastic, which was solid. And now we have a technology which uses liquid or semi, like it is not, like let's call it a viscous liquid because it is resin. So it has a liquid as a raw material, which is basically a resin and a photopolymer resin. And what happens to photopolymer resins, if we put UV light on it or photons in it in a very scientific manner, it just hardens or solidifies. So using this advantage or this property of the material, this system was made. So what is happening here, if you look at, so it doesn't make much sense to read the text here. It's better if I explain it through the illustration. So what's happening is that we have a chamber which has liquid resin filled in it, and there is this bed which moves down eventually. So what would have happened when the print started was that this bed, this dark brown thing, would have been at the top of this liquid, right? And then there's a system which is basically a 3D printer. So what it's doing is it is drawing on the resin, on the liquid layer, the cross section of your print. So again, we have very thin slices. What the laser is doing is, it's like if you just try and hold a laser light, and if you like use it to draw something on the wall, it's doing the same thing. So it's drawing on the surface of the resin, the cross section of your 3D model. And as soon as the laser hits that part of the resin, it solidifies then and there. So what would have happened when the bed was here, there was a very thin layer of resin. Again, the thickness of the difference between the topmost layer of resin and the bed would be the layer height that you must have defined in the settings. So that much thickness of resin got solidified as the first layer on the resin. Then what would have happened? The bed would have moved one step down, which is again the height of the thickness that you defined, and then another layer got solidified, and this process kept continuing. It will be better to understand from a video. So I'll just show you another video, how it works, and maybe it will make you more interested.
The Form 1 Plus is a stereolithography 3D printer. Today,
yeah, so before coming to the video, I would also like to mention that this illustration was made just to make it simpler to understand, but mostly what happens is that the whole system is upside down. So if I just rotate this image 180 degrees, it will be that how SLA printers are. So the laser beam comes from the bottom, and the resin is in between, and the bed comes from the top. So the bed keeps moving up. You'll see in the next video, but basically the whole system is upside down instead of the illustration that it shows here. Yeah, so now enjoy the video.
The Form 1 Plus is a stereolithography 3D printer. Today, we're going to take a look at how it works and put it to the test against parts from an extrusion-based machine. Let's start by taking a closer look at the printer. When we open up the light blocking cover, we can see a build platform inside. This metal plate is where the parts are made. Underneath the build platform is a resin tank. This clear window gives the ultraviolet laser a path to cure the resin. To start a print, we'll upload a file and fill up the resin tank to the indicator line. You can see the laser passing back and forth inside, hardening the liquid plastic. We'll take our printout and wash it in rubbing alcohol to get the excess resin off. The flower comes with supports on it, and we'll snip them off to finish the piece. Stereolithography is known for producing extreme detail with layers down to 4 times finer than a human hair. The Form 1 Plus lets us take advantage of a library of materials, so we made some other parts to show what these resins can do. A castable resin gives jewelers and engineers an inexpensive way to produce metal parts. This flexible resin is great for simulating different textures, and as we can see, this tough resin can really take a hit. Now let's compare how the Form 1 Plus parts stand up against a filament printer. The stereolithography part comes out nice and smooth, but we can see and feel the ridges on the cup printed with filament. When we break this sample piece, you can see that filament parts quickly snap along the layer lines. The SLA process creates a chemical bond, so our prints take much more force. Today, we took a look at how stereolithography printers work, the types of resins they can print with, and what makes the parts stand out against other desktop machines.
Yeah, so I hope that made it a little clearer. And again, some parameters for control, but as the technology of 3D printing keep getting complicated, the manufacturers of that technology or those printers want to give less control to you so that you don't end up messing up your 3D printer. So the lesser control they give in a way is better for your usage. So you will have lesser parameters to control here, but this is also not the full list of parameters, but the basic ones that you should know once you start printing in SLA. I think your dental department has a Formlabs printer, Form 2, which works on the SLA technology. So
Yeah,
yes, yeah. Right. So the things that you can control or you should know about, one is orientation. So the orientation that you print here is actually important. It's more important than the orientation if you would have controlled it in the FDM technology, because over here it does not matter that much, to put it in simple words. But over here it matters a lot because it affects your print time. So if you place the hammer that in this image, if you place it like this, since it has to reach a higher Z axis, it will take much more time, because it more or less takes no time for the laser to draw a cross section, but the most of the time the printer takes is in moving the Z. So if you print it vertically, it will take more time. If you print it horizontally, it will take less time, simple as that. But you might get better features if you print it in this orientation. So there is again a balance of properties or the features that you want from your model that you need to draw. Then it will also affect the number of supports that you might need. So again, coming to this hammer, you can see that a lot of supports or longer or taller supports are needed in this. Over here, it's not like the density of the supports is still the same, but the if you see the amount of supports, it will be less in this. Okay, so again, the supports here like helps print the overhangs, but there is a lot of like a not lot of control on the supports that you can have. You can just define what is the end touch point size that you want for the supports to be. So that means how much amount of support you want to actually touch your model. So that is where a spot will come when you break off these support. So if you saw the flower example, when the supports were taken off, you could see some spots on it where the supports were touching. So that is what you can define in this. Then the layer thickness and layer thickness range for SLA prints is much more better compared to FDM. So you can actually print very thin layers, and that is why the end result is very good and the surface is very good, because you cannot actually see any layers from the naked eye. So it already has a very good finish. If you still want to do post processing, yes, you can do that. And the build plate adhesion, you can have something, if you see this image, you can have something like a raft which keeps your model stick to the bed. And otherwise, if it totally depends on how you want to print and how much material you want to save, or how much material you want to spend in the print, you can print it without rafts as well. But this is a safer way of printing it with raft. Without raft, it's a little risky. It might come off when it's getting printed. It usually does not, but it might. So that also depends on the weight of your whole model, because it's printing upside down. So if the supports and the bottommost cross section area can hold that much weight of your model, then it will be able to hold. Otherwise, if it's too heavy at the top end, it will obviously drop. So you also might need to take care that most of the weight of your model is at the bottom. And over here, you cannot control the infill. So if you want to make a hollow part, you need to design it hollow. If you want to make a model with 30% infill, you need to design it with 30% infill. So lesser control, but yes, that is for the safety of the printer. And the post processing involves two steps which are actually important before using the product. So you need to wash the model in IPA, which is isopropyl alcohol, to remove any excess resin that is there when you take your print out. And then you need to post cure it, which is basically you put it in a UV chamber so that any resin that has gone into very small places of your print, which is not actually cured, so not to harm yourself, you would want it to be cured and solidify, so that the dimensional accuracy can also be maintained. You would post cure it, and after that you can cut down the supports, or if you want to keep it as a prototype to show off the supports, how you printed the model, you can keep it with supports, and you can do the finishing processes like painting and sanding it down again on this. Yeah, any doubts in this? Like we'll have a Q&A session at the end as well, if time permits. But if you want to ask something right now as well, it's fine. Okay, so moving on. So this is the third technology where the raw material is basically powder based. So we have basically nylon powders. So the material limitation starts coming as more the technology gets complicated. So there are very patented materials that are available. So if you buy a printer from one manufacturer, they would want you to purchase the material from them as well. So they have patented technologies, but let's understand how this works. So this is a more complicated illustration, so I'll just quickly explain what happens. So there are 1, 2, and 3 chambers. If you can just imagine them as chambers, because the front part is open just for you to see. And what happens, if you can imagine that the leftmost and the rightmost chambers are where the powder is stored, and the bottom things, the cylinders where you can see the vertical arrows, are basically pistons. So these can move up and down. So you can store powder here, and what happens is that in the middle one it gets printed. So what is happening, when the print would have started, this piston would have been at the top, and there would have been a very thin layer of powder, and then again, just like SLA, a laser would come and it would move on, and it will draw the cross section of your model. And the powder will actually, we'll see in the next video how it works, but what will happen is that the powder will get melted and will get fused to the adjacent powder particle, and you will have a solid layer in this. So that is how the process works. So this piston keeps coming up, this roller keeps bringing some new powder on top of the previous layer, and this piston keeps going down, and this is just like maybe the excess powder that is left after the powder, after the layer, it goes here. So again, the laser will be different. In previous one, the laser was UV based. Now we need to have a laser which can melt powders, or basically nylon powders. So we sometimes use CO2 lasers, and I won't take more time explaining this, because I think the video will be better in explaining this than me. So if you just...
Selective laser sintering, or SLS, is a rapid prototyping technology that turns 3D CAD data into physical parts in a matter of hours. SLS is an additive manufacturing technology that uses powdered nylon 11, nylon 12, and PEEK materials. Parts produced are lightweight, highly durable, and both heat and chemical resistant, making SLS an excellent choice for producing production parts without the expense of tooling. The SLS process begins by splitting 3D CAD data into thin cross-sections or layers. The data is then transferred to the SLS additive manufacturing equipment. The machine then begins to create the first layer. After a leveling roller spreads a thin layer of powdered material across the powder bed, a CO2 laser traces the cross-section on the material. As the laser scans the surface, material is heated and fused together. Once a single layer is complete, the powder bed is lowered to make room for the next layer. More material is introduced from the powder cartridge and rolled out smooth, while unused material is recycled. The process is repeated, building layer upon layer until the part is complete. As SLS parts are built, they are encompassed by unsintered powder, which provides supplemental strength and eliminates the need for support structures. Complex designs and assemblies, once thought impossible, are now being redesigned with SLS as cost-effective integrated structures. Solid Concepts manufactures parts utilizing nylon with property-enhancing fillers to create rugged SLS parts suitable for a variety of prototype and production applications. Typical uses for SLS include tools and fixtures, fuel tanks, flight-rated components for unmanned aerial vehicles, automotive designs, air ducts, architectural models, and artistic sculptures.
So if you observed in the video, like the layers were actually whatever the cross section was being drawn by the laser, it was magically appearing because to the cameras, the CO2 laser is not very well visible. That is why you won't find a lot of videos as well for SLS printing. Because of that, there was an animation to explain the things. But I hope that it made a little sense for the initials to understand the basics at least. Okay, so the control parameters again is the orientation, which affects just like SLA, the print time, print quality, and printability of the model. So in one orientation in this technology, it might not even be printable. And then the shrink ratio, because what's happening is when the powder is heated, it to like fuse and to fuse to the adjacent powder, it needs to come closer, right? So there will be a shrinkage happening. So you need to compensate for that before you start the print. So you will scale up your model, and how much the software will tell you how much you need to scale for every particular material. And then the last parameter that you can control is the layer thickness, and that affects the quality of your print. So if you also saw in the video, after the print was completed, there was a chamber of powder that was taken out. So all the powder was taken out as a big huge cake of powder, and then you need to find your part. So that is actually a very fun part, to find your part inside that powder cake, and then you need to clean it with a brush. And then you can also use sandblasting to take out powder, residue powder from very intricate places, and then you can do the same finishing of sanding and painting if you want. So this was the third that I think you should be able to understand at least the basics of for the starters. And now let's move on to the solutions that are there. So there is not much to explain in this. Basically, these are some companies that I do not I am not sponsored by anyone, so it doesn't matter. I've just listed down the companies which are good for anyone who is looking to purchase some printers and start their own. Because when I learned about 3D printing like 4 or 5 years ago, I couldn't resist and I had to buy a printer like 2 months after when I learned it. So these printers you can buy from a range of 10,000 to 20, 30,000. So these are really cheap ones, and they do the job quite well. I have in the last slide my own place where I post some pictures of the prints that I do at my place. So some hobby parts, so you can see like what quality you can achieve with those very cheap ones. So these are some of the names. Then these are the good printers, which are for the low cost industry and designers and who are looking into solutions. So these are what I call the actual printers, because these are just replicating the process in a very simple manner and doing the fun part. Maybe you are making toys, you're making showpieces, and sometimes actually useful parts as well for home solutions. Then these are the ones which you find printing shops using. If you order something online, a print maybe from a company, these will be the ones they will use to make your models. These are some names of the companies, and these are the big players which are being used in manufacturing industries. And the printers look big as well, so a lot of intricacy in the printers and a lot of composite materials that they can do. And this is the design chart which will help you design parts. So I'll just go through so that you can understand the chart well. So basically over here you have the technology which will for which you are designing your part to be printed in. So for example, if you want to use FDM for printing, you will use this row, and these are the features that you need to use when you are designing your model, and these are the limitations or the values that you will have to keep in mind. And there's some explanation at the top. So this I can post it a PDF of this. In if the image is not very clear, I can share a PDF with you guys, and you can also download it from 3D Hubs if you want. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about
Yeah,
this.
the font is a bit small.
Yeah. I know. I'll just try and share it in the chat after my presentation for you guys. Okay, so something about my PhD I just wanted to share. I can't go too deep explaining this because one, it is confidential because it is funded by PepsiCo, so I cannot give a lot of details. But just to tell you what I'm doing here is that I am trying to use 3D printing to build robots. in very simple terms. So basically what PepsiCo wants is that they want some robots to be put in their place of packaging halls, and they don't want to, their end goal is not to purchase a robot from a manufacturer. They want to make robots in-house, cheap, in a cheap manner. Reason being, the robots, industrial robots that are there, which look like this, are very expensive, and they are made with something in mind for the companies who manufacture automotive parts. So basically these robots have a high capacity or a very high load ratio, so they can pick, to explain it in simple terms, they can lift a very heavy load. But what PepsiCo wants is they just want to pick packet of Lay's, they just want to pick a Pepsi bottle for packaging, right? So they do not want that heavy machinery in their packaging halls first thing, and then they do not want to spend that much because they won't be using the whole capacity of the machine. So they just want to make a robot in-house, and that is my job, to create a robotic system which will have a user interface which will allow PepsiCo to define what type of robot do they want, what how many hands, like how many links do they want in a robot, in very simple terms. And they will have a 3D printing facility in the in-house, and then they'll be using it to print the model, like the real size model, a full big scale one. So most probably they'll be using some industrial printer, and then there will be electronics as well, and someone will be assembling it, and then it will be deployed in the packaging hall. So that is, just wanted to share what I am doing as PhD. And before jumping into the questions, I would also want, so this is like my personal thing. I started a 3D printing page when on Instagram, when I purchased a hobby printer where I like to post whatever I print. So if you are just interested to see what all you can make, you can follow this on Instagram. And yeah, this is my contact information. If you want any help anytime, you can ask me. I have given my Gmail ID as well if you want. That's fine. This is my number. I think there's a mistake. This 0 should be a 9. I'm not sure why is it like this. Maybe the font. And this is my number. And yeah, I'm open to questions. If anyone has any doubts, please ask. And I hope that I was able to explain it fine and you could understand.
Can you please stop sharing?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
It was good, really good. You explained the 3 things very beautifully. And we loved your passion for 3D printing. It showed in your energy, how you were talking about it. So enjoyed that too. Yeah. Okay, you have shared the file.
Yes, I've done that.
Are there any questions? Yes, Richa, can you please go ahead? No, there's none.
I think, ma'am, no more questions.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay, then I'm here to present you with a certificate. I'll definitely mail it to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us and explaining the 3D printing procedures so well. I think everyone got the message.
Yes, thank you so much for this, ma'am, and allowing me and giving me this opportunity as well.
Yeah, that energy. I appreciate that energy.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we end today and we meet again tomorrow. We have a speaker from New Zealand tomorrow morning. So I would request everyone to join in a bit 5 minutes earlier than the specified time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Kar.
Thank you so much.